UCFM proudly presents the UCOMMS podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the UCOMMS podcast on UCFM. My name's Declan and this is episode 5. With me today I have our very special guest, our one and only, for the 5th time in a row, Taiga.
Hello, welcome to be here. I'm trying to match Michael Jordan with a 6 out of 6 appearance. Always happy to be here.
I reckon you can go for the 6 of 6. I reckon we can even top the 6 of 6. We could go for 7 of 7. But welcome Taiga. It's nice of you to be here. How have you been?
Been pretty good. I've got some fun things to update our listeners to.
Oh, cool. Is this related to UCOMMS and
Yes.
the upcoming semester?
Firstly, we've got something still in winter term.
Oh, cool.
So this will obviously come out on a Monday. So this Wednesday, there'll be a pizza lunch on the 25th of June in room 9B16. It starts at 1:30 p.m. You know, this is a great chance to take a break from the winter term if you're here, or just take a break from the holidays. Come into UC. We've got snacks, we've got Red Bull, and we've got pizza waiting. This would be a great chance to maybe meet some new people, bring a friend. We're gonna try to do this in the second semester, so this is a great trial to see what UCOMMS will be doing.
Cool.
However, eventually, before the second semester starts, there is orientation week. And UCOMMS will be there as well. We've got
cool. Awesome.
$50 of prizes for our mysterious competition.
Oh, cool. So you're doing a competition for a week.
We are.
We just need to confirm what the competition is.
Yes, but we do have the $50 worth of prizes. And don't worry, we'll update you on our podcast, on our website, and on all our socials. On our Instagram, UCOMMS Society, all one word, all lowercase.
Very important with the lowercase. So we've got the O-Week event in which we'll have a little competition and a little goodie bag to give away. $50 worth of value goodie bag. We've also got did you say the pizza lunch?
Yep. We've got
that was happening. Lunch. What was the date again?
25th of June, so this Wednesday.
Cool, and that's at 1:30?
1:30 in room 9B16, the UCOMMS room.
Awesome, thanks Taiga. Are there any other updates for UCOMMS at the moment, or?
I think obviously we're going to be moving along with our plans for the second semester. We want to get weekly or fortnightly pizza lunches going with snack drops.
Yeah, cool. We
want to do another trivia night, maybe another panel, maybe an excursion.
Ooh, cool.
We've got a bunch of plans. We've got some plans in the work.
I think an excursion would be really cool.
It would
be. But I've heard you updated the website recently, or you're planning on updating the website?
I think our website is going over a redevelopment. We will be having updates from the Cairns advertisement competition. We'll be picking very good examples of what to do in campaigns. So you can use these in examples for class or to base off assignments for.
Okay, cool. So we'll be adding in some case studies and giving the website a bit of a revamp.
Yep.
Awesome. Anything else? Or
I think that's all we have for now, but stay tuned.
Cool. So that was Taiga with the UCOMMS news. I guess moving on, we'll just we'll follow up from last week, I think, where we talked about Duolingo. So, do you remember? Not last week, sorry. This would be
last episode.
Yeah. Wow, it'd be 4 weeks ago by now. So last episode, you remember we talked about Duolingo and deleting all of their social media content.
It was a lot of big backlash over their swap to AI.
Yeah, the CEO made statements saying that he was going to replace contract employees with AI, and then they deleted all of their social media accounts, or social media content, I should say, on their main channel. Turns out the day after we recorded, so we recorded on the 22nd of May, the day after that, on the 23rd of May, they released a post that was titled The Truth, in which the ominous three-eyed owl that we talked about last week, or last episode I should say, interviewed the CEO of Duolingo, Louis von Ahn. In the interview, he stated that the numerous nature of the marketing and online presence was due to their employees. He backtracked on all of his previous statements about replacing employees with AI, and states he will be hiring more human employees going forward. He also discussed that his workforce needs to be prepared and willing to learn how to use and implement AI into Duolingo. From a communication standpoint, I thought this was really interesting because, like we discussed last week, the meme culture behind Duolingo kind of devalued the brand as a language learning tool. I think most people now recognize the owl from the memes before they recognize it as a language learning assistant, which is kind of what the owl was initially developed to be. In the interview that we talked about earlier with Louis von Ahn, he said that it was important that Duolingo was able to integrate AI, as it will help them launch language learning classes faster. I think he also stated that it took them 10 years to create their first, was it 9 or 10 language learning classes? So I think his reasoning is he wants to use AI to kind of build things up faster. Like I said last week, I still think that this was all kind of deliberate in an attempt to drum up awareness for the brand, and for people to see it more as a language learning tool instead of just a meme. I think this because it all seems very pre-planned and deliberate. It doesn't seem like, other than the backtracking of the statement, it doesn't seem like they had to backtrack too much. They didn't really go into crisis management mode. It's more that they had this planned out. Maybe didn't go the way they wanted it to, but they definitely leaned into it the way it went. And I think it worked because ever since, I've just seen people talking about Duolingo again. They're talking about it as a language learning tool as opposed to just memes. And we've talked about it here for 2 episodes in a row. So, yeah, what do you think, Taiga?
I think the strategy was good. I think, as you said, they did not expect the backlash at all. I think the long-term strategy that we fully didn't grasp last episode was that they wanted to rebrand themselves as a language learning tool first, with the meme second, instead of the way it was before with meme first and language learning tool second.
Yeah. But I don't know, how important do you think having an online presence is for brands now?
I think having an online presence for brands is very good, but I think unfortunately with Duolingo's, they really struck gold with that initial April Fool's video. I think it was in 2019 or 2018, and then they ran with it. And that was very good short-term success, but I think they kept using that same idea, and they forced themselves into the hole, and they dug themselves out of it with, I think, very well. I think especially when they were going full AI, and they managed to mostly dodge that controversy as well, surprisingly. Obviously, I'm sure some people will still remember them as people who decided to go full AI only to backtrack, but I don't think it's the worst place they could be out of this situation.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, I think I agree with you. I think using all of the meme content, I should say, for their social media kind of really did dilute the brand as a language learning tool. People weren't seeing it as a language learning assistant, a language learning tool, something they can help them use to learn a second language, to gain new skills. They were seeing it as a form of humor, and if it was dinging on their phone, they were ignoring it, even if they had the app installed. But I don't know, I think now, and I should say that they haven't backtracked completely on all the meme content. They have put back all of their old meme content. So all of the stuff that they deleted from their Instagram, it's now back. And I think even as of this morning, they were still posting meme content when I looked this morning. So they're still going with the meme content, maybe not as heavily. But I don't know, I think it's interesting that it seems like a deliberate attempt to get people to think about Duolingo as a language learning assistant, as opposed to just thinking about Duolingo as a meme.
Now, I haven't seen much of their content. I found it funny initially, but grew a bit tired of it, and I suspect that's kind of what led them to the rebrand. But has any of their communication centered around learning a language for vacation or somewhere?
I think they market themselves as language learning as a new skill.
Yeah.
probably to help you go on holiday, to help you communicate with people, to help you communicate with loved ones even, or even just something to do. But I think the way they market themselves mostly is new life skills as opposed to connection.
Because I think there's always a good chance to really increase their image, the facet of their brand as a language learning tool for going on vacation, especially during the holiday season, because that's a big time. That's when, if you're going to go to a holiday, you're going to save up for it over the year. You're going to go someplace exotic or someplace far away.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect time to, like, in preparation for it, when you're packing your bags, when you do putting image of that with someone learning Duolingo on the side, I think is a great opportunity for them.
Well, I don't know, I kind of think that language learning is it's high involvement. So it's something that takes a bit of effort, a bit of thinking about, it can be relatively low cost with things like Duolingo, so low cost, high involvement. But I wonder how many people would be willing to learn, say, French for a whole year, to go on holiday to France for 2 weeks and then not learn any more French. So I think just marketing as a vacation, this can help you go on vacation. It's probably not going to do as well as marketing as, like, this will help you with your brain activity. This will help you live longer, perhaps, but this will help you communicate with people in a different setting that, maybe you'll learn new things. It seems to be more of like life skills and that kind of, or doing it for fun as opposed. Actually, that's probably the better way to describe it. I think they're putting language learning as a fun thing to do. They're doing it for fun. Yeah.
I think that is an interesting point you raised.
Yeah. I don't know, because I just wonder how many people would willingly learn French for 12 months to go on holiday for France for 2 weeks, and then because I'm not sure, it has to be maybe Spanish or a bit more of a universal language would be more beneficial in a business sense. But I think initially we're very lucky to speak English, which is the universal business language, so we don't need to bother learning like English.
That could be something they could market to non-English speakers.
I wonder if they do. We have to see what their international marketing is like. But do you have anything else to say about Duolingo and this whole AI communications thing? Or
I think I'm always glad to see more companies realize that AI is not this saving grace to their business. They'll suddenly boost productivity by 40%. I'm always glad to see more people realize that AI is just a tool that should be used by humans, not to replace humans.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point. It's a tool for humans, not to replace humans. I don't think I could have put it better myself, Taiga. Very, very good. But if you don't have anything to say, I think we'll go straight in. We'll fly through this episode, I think, because it's still the winter term. So we'll go with the brand of the month.
What's the brand of the month?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So the brand of the month this episode is EB Games. So I don't know about you, as a millennial, I have some pretty fond memories of EB Games. But
I've only cleared the level 1 tier of membership, and I don't know how to make it higher.
I think you just need to spend more money. That's the rewards loyalty program. But anyway, so I just wanted to talk about EB Games for a little bit. So EB Games was actually founded in 1977, which made it far older than I initially thought it was. But when they opened initially, they were selling things like digital watches, calculators, and small radios. And as an Australian, this surprised me too. Did you know it actually opened in America?
No, I thought it would have... I'm aware that it's in Australia, New Zealand, it's in Canada. I figured it'd be one of those countries in the Commonwealth. I did not expect it to emerge from America.
Yeah, so it was actually founded in Philadelphia, which is real weird. But and then it started operating in Australia in 1997, which is a whole 20 years after it was founded. And then it moved into New Zealand in 2000. I'm not sure when it moved into Canada, but it was definitely in Australia and New Zealand by the 2000s. And then when it initially opened, it opened as Electronics Boutique. So it was still focusing on things like digital watches, calculators, small radios, maybe branching out a little bit more into things like game consoles and televisions. But in 2002, they announced they were going to just do a whole rebrand, and this was a whole global rebrand. So it didn't just affect Australia, it affected all of the countries that we talked about earlier, and was rebranded into EB Games. So the company back then stated that the rebrand would allow EB Games to leverage its marketing programs across multiple retail formats and better market itself as the premier source for interactive entertainment. I think this is just saying, hey, we want to focus on games. We're getting rid of the radios, the digital watches, the calculators. We're doing games. We're focusing. We're narrowing down what we want to do. We're going to have a clear focus on who we are, and this is it. And then 3 years after that, in 2005, they were bought out by GameStop, which, I don't know about you, I think GameStop is a very disliked company. It's an American company, but they're kind of like just an overall conglomerate, I think, for video game stores. And then coming up to 10 years later, we had Zing Pop Culture pop open in 2014. And then between then and 2020, I don't think EB Games was doing particularly hot. They weren't really focusing. They had a split between some stores were Zing, some stores were EB Games. The EB Games stores, that were still existing that weren't Zing, weren't really, to me, like there was one in Tuggeranong that wasn't like a games store. They had, I swear, more pop vinyl like figures than video games. And then they just merged them together. So Zing, EB Games, instead of being two separate stores, they merged together into one store. I think in Belconnen, they think they're two separate stores.
I'm pretty
sure
there is. They're both on the third floor and very close to each other.
They are close to each other, but I'm pretty sure they're two separate stores.
They are two separate stores.
Most other stores that we have between then and now have kind of merged in together to become EB Games / Zing. I know that the one in Civic closed down and then, or moved, I should say, to become EB Games Zing. I don't think this was working too well for them, because in 2012 and 2020, I should say, they closed 19 unprofitable stores. Unprofitable just meaning no one was walking in, probably really bad locations. I think, the big cough that was going around in 2020 probably pushed that along a little bit as well. But I think since 2020, they've done a lot of diversification. So as we were talking about earlier, they've kind of merged EB Games and Zing into one. They're selling not just video game stuff, anything pop culture related. You could walk in there to find The Nightmare Before Christmas, Harry Potter, Jurassic Park, any like popular anime like My Hero Academia or Naruto, anything popular. So, and then the video game aspect of it, it's taking up like a third of the store now or something. Like when I walk into EB, because I only go to the one in Civic because that's where I live. So when I walk into the EB Games to go look for a video game or just to go browse or because I'm bored or whatever, I'm around the center, I walk in and it's like a third of it, not even, is video games, and then the rest of it is just a bunch of stuff that I'm never going to buy. I think I read a comment the other day that said, I walked into EB Games to buy a controller. I walked out with a Jurassic Park lunchbox and existential dread. So, but I think it's worked because EB Games Australia is GameStop's only profitable subsidiary. So they're not profitable in America. They don't seem to be profitable in New Zealand or Canada either. But I think here, because they've branched out and diversified the brand so much, that they're profitable again. But this leads me into, I guess, a question for you, Taiga, is considering they've lost such a focus on games and a focus on what made them EB Games to start with, which they've been EB Games for 23 years now, with the lost focus on that, Do you think it's time for them to maybe rebrand a little bit or lean more into Zing or get rid of EB Games as a whole? What would you do with EB Games?
That I find is a really, really hard question to ask, because what's interesting is that I still treat EB Games what it was like 10 years ago, because I go to the Belconnen one.
Yep.
You know, that one, when I think of EB Games, I think of pre-owned games.
Okay.
And because it has a big... The moment you walk in, the first thing you see all these very discounted pre-owned games. You've got shelves of video games from all the big three. And obviously, I see a lot more merchandise now as well. I see a lot more Pokemon cards. And I think what EB Games has done, as you said, is that, especially with the pandemic, is that they've been shifting into merchandise that has been seen a boom, as that people now spending more monies on the hobbies than they normally would. Because I think they just simply, because they had all that time in the pandemic in the houses, they needed things to do.
Yeah.
So I think they've done that well in Australia and rode the wave compared to the American GameStop. But I think if they just remove their EB Games and just make it EB, that might be a good idea. They might be just seen as this all things nerdy. They might try to shift to that.
Yeah.
But I think being focused in games still allows them to sell the pre-owned games, still allows them to make lots of money off that while keeping the other stores. And I think it is a bit of a shame that Zing is not as popular, but I think that's part of it, is that EB is such a good, strong brand. It just makes sense to just simply sell all the merchandise you would sell on they used to sell on Zing through to EB instead.
Yeah. Well, that's because I think pre-owned games too are one of their biggest sources of profit. Because when you sell a brand new game, you're selling it for what, $120?
Yeah.
That's what the publishers told you to put it at. You're taking a very small percentage of that. It's going to the publisher, the developer, everything in between the point of sale and when it was produced. Whereas if it's a second-hand game, that's a game that let's say I go into EB Games and I give them a copy of Spider-Man for the PlayStation 5. They give me $5 for it. They go and sell it for $45 or something. I can't remember how much that they're selling Spider-Man on the PlayStation 5 for. But that's all profit, because they've bought it from me for $5, or they've given me $8 store credit. And then they've sold it for that much. That's all profit for them.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about the overheads, paying the publisher again. It's just a second-hand good. And I think that's a major source of income for them. And then thinking about it from when I was back, 14, 15, 16, you don't have money for new video games. So how do you get new video games?
Buy pre-owned from EB Games.
And you trade in.
Yes.
So you do a lot of trade-ins and you do a lot of... and then you sit here 10 years later thinking, wow, if I still had my Game Boy Micro, I'd be sitting on so much money. All of the Pokemon games and the Game Boys that I traded in to get the new stuff, I wish I never did it. But I guess hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I think I'm getting a bit off track here. This is just my personal vendetta against myself for throwing things away or getting rid of things.
But that is the main reason why I think it seems, instead of going as the way of HBO with the streaming service HBO Max, then changing it to just Max before changing it back to HBO, I believe, I think you do lose that the recognition of your brand. And the big thing is that the secondhand market for video games in particular is just growing. People want an easy way to buy and sell old video games, or do what you do, and just simply keep rotating through the games to make it more affordable. And especially if I've seen the rise of I believe it was Sex with CEX as another brand that seems to keep going strong. It makes sense to keep it you may not have the best, you may be a bit of a surprise to a lot of consumers, but it makes more sense to get people playing video games and then show them what else you have in your in your environment of products.
Revolution CD still in Belconnen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, they're still there.
They are, and I think they're. It's hard. I feel like it's harder for them to sell because I've noticed all of them. They're trying to get onto the collectible, tradable card game wave.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking when you were talking about CEX and thinking about EB Games, and I think we have EB Games, we have CEX. I think they're the main two for kind of secondhand. I think JB Hi-Fi dabbles in secondhand stuff, but I don't really go in there for secondhand. If I was looking for pre-owned, I'd probably go into EB Games or CEX. Probably CEX first for pre-owned. But then you have those smaller independent kind of stores like Revolution CD. Do you think that it's kind of we're seeing a shift away from smaller kind of plates? Because I know there used to be a lot of Revolution CDs. There used to be one in Woden, one in Civic, one in Queanbeyan, one in Belconnen. Now there's just the one in Belconnen. Whereas there's more EB Games and CEXs than ever. So
I think part of that is that they were focused into certain niches, and some niches have appreciated and grown and others have gone down. One thing I noticed when I was in the Revolution CD trying to find a Nintendo DS, which I found for a good deal, which was great, but it was an incredible amount of DVDs.
Yeah, because I think that's what I was just about to say, is they sell and they buy, but there's a lot of DVDs and a lot of CDs and Blu-rays and just weird stuff like that, or not weird stuff, but legacy media, I should say, like that. Whereas I don't think the second-hand market for that stuff is quite as strong, whereas you have second-hand video games. Whereas I'm looking at a copy right now of Pokemon Sapphire, listed online from the Gamesman, which is an online second-hand retailer. That's $228, and that's just a little Game Boy Advance cartridge that was released in 2003. So the fact that something like a video game released in 2003 can maintain that, I know it's Pokemon, so it's a little bit unfair, but vintage or retro video games seem to maintain their value a lot more than something like a CD or a DVD. You know, I can buy, well, I think we could probably go into Revolution right now and buy 10 DVDs for what, $1? Something like that. Like, they're so invaluable, especially the second-hand market for it. So,
and I think it's just, obviously, with the rise of streaming services, it's just very easy to, that kind of replaced the DVD market. That's why movies don't make money as more. They used to have big sales on DVDs. However, with video games, it is harder to put consistent versions of old video games. There's obviously so many remasters or remakes, and that allows EB Games to profit from the second-hand market.
I think with movies too, it's been such an evolution. So people used to only be able to watch movies at the movie theater or the drive-in. Well, what a weird concept, right? The drive-in. But people used to only be able to go to the theater or the movie, the drive-in, to watch a movie. And then slowly there was technology released like VHS and DVD and TV, color TV, to let people watch movies in their own homes. So movies kind of shifted away from being a form of entertainment that you would go out for to just a way to kill time at home. And then it's become, I guess music's the same too, but movies have become such a commodity now, I think, with streaming. You're seeing that kind of happen with video games. So like Xbox does streaming services where you can just stream video games. You pay for their monthly service and you just stream. So I know EB Games has that really strong brand loyalty, that really strong name recognition. Like we said earlier, they have EB World, which is their loyalty program, which I think gives you discounts or things like that. So they have that brand recognition, they have that loyalty. I don't know. I don't think it's a bit of a tough case, isn't it? I think what you said earlier with maybe dropping the games part and keeping the EB is probably a really good idea, because then they still have that brand recognition. They still have that name. You know, people are seeing EB, you know. But
I think a great example of that is Domino's. Apparently it used to be called Domino's Pizza and just became Domino's. And for most people, Domino's is still synonymous with pizza. They're just not saying it out loud to
Yeah.
allow to them to think of pizza and, which might be a better idea.
I think this could just be an urban rumor, but I think KFC had the same thing. They're not trademarked as Kentucky Fried Chicken in Australia. They're trademarked as only KFC.
And I think that is probably this. It's like chicken, but then there's also other things as well.
Yeah, well, that's where the whole conspiracy theory started, isn't it? You know, it wasn't just Kentucky Fried Chicken, it was Kentucky Fried other stuff. But, yeah.
Kept leaning back into the electronic boutique and showing all the various ideas, but then it might be a bit of a bad idea because many of the products aren't electronic.
Well, I was going to say, because they've stopped the focus on the games part, maybe they could just go back to electronics boutique. But I think you're right, because they do sell quite a lot that isn't electronic. They sell, clothing? I can go in there and buy a pajama set for Jurassic Park right now.
I can buy sports jerseys for fictional characters that don't play that sport.
I've seen them. They're really cool. Some of the anime ones, I really like them.
It's like very surprising to see. It's like, wow, that's certainly a product, but it's there because people buy it.
Yeah, maybe we could discuss that next episode, a little bit of a cross collaboration between sports teams and video game fictional characters. So, yeah. But anyway, I think because it's the winter term, we might cut this episode a little bit short. If you don't have anything to talk about, Taiga?
I think that's it. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our 5th episode of the UCOMMS podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Once again, thank you all for listening. This has been the 5th episode. My name's Declan, and I'll catch you next time.